Magog is a massive faggot.
So today we're going to be revisiting the subject of taxes. That is a debate to be held by far smarter people than I and ANCAPs. Instead, though, we're going to be talking about a position Jeremy Corbyn holds. I'm not going to be taking shots really at him, because this particular article has me curious. But Jeremy Corbyn has said tech firm tax could fund journalism. This has me in a bit of an odd position, with trust in the media being at all-time low. What do you attribute that to? Do you blame the multi-million pound or multi-billion pound corporations, who are not, as we all know, paying their fair share in tax? Subjective, I know, and I'm not getting drawn into that. Or do you attribute that to the quality of the journalism? Spoilers, it was the first one. So a windfall tax could be levied on tech giants such as Google, Amazon and Facebook to pay for public interest journalism, Jeremy Corbyn has said. I'm not so keen on this public interest journalism, because that in and of itself is quite subjective. And considering how biased quite a number of media sources are, I am concerned what falls into the bracket of public interest and then what does not. Because considering how politics works right now, which is quite divided, always has been of course, but it's current year now, so it's obviously the worst it could ever possibly be, because current year. I think the majority of you know what I mean. Someone might argue, because of what someone believes politically, that what they think is therefore hate speech and not in the public's interest. However, I am on board with the idea of funding journalism in the sense that they are then held to a certain standard. Honesty, integrity, ethics. These are key. These are also things you find the majority of journalists lack. They lack it either because of political bias, which shows quite brightly in their content, or because they are sensationalist, clickbaity little worms who are not interested in the quality so much as they are interested in the quantity of the views they get for it, which is where their integrity is renowned for going down the drain in favour of a pound note. Not that I'm in any way against that. If you want to make money, go ahead. But media trust is at an all-time low. Something needs to be addressed. How you go about doing that is interesting. Now, in this instance, the Conservatives have said that the internet tax would increase consumer bills. Now, we all know why. Because if we start taxing big companies, either they threaten to move their business elsewhere, or they then increase the bill to the consumer so that their profit margin is in no way harmed. This is wrong. And I think if you're going to make it so that companies cannot punish the customer for them having to pay what some deem to be that, quote, fair share, then I think suitable negotiations have to take place with these companies. Once you start telling people publicly that they will increase the bills, you are giving the power to the company and you are weakening yourself as a government. So I tend to take the position that in this the Conservatives are quite wrong to outright say the internet tax would increase consumer bills, because you've made the companies look powerful. This should be behind closed doors and negotiated. Other ideas include a digital license fee paid for by big tech companies and internet providers, and publishing data on BBC employees' social class. Is that the part where you find out the majority are not working class? Or that the majority of black and ethnic minority groups have only gotten their jobs because of jobs that exclude absolutely on the grounds of race, preventing white people with similar skills from getting jobs cause skin colour matters? Now, there is an article linked here in this first paragraph. We will address it soon enough. Speaking on Thursday in the Alternative McTaggart lecture, Mr. Corbyn said the British press is the least trusted press in Europe, and it's understandable when they publish so much drivel. Now, I have covered quite a lot of it on this channel, certainly when I shifted from doing response videos to this. Yeah, there's a lot of it, and you do find quite quickly where the intellectually dishonest journalists hide. It's always in the sites where there is most political skewing bias. There are some journalists that do have integrity, but they're the ones that don't get the clicks on their articles, because they're not clickbaity enough. Maybe they should take lessons from Schuenhead on how to make a good clickbaity thumbnail, if articles had thumbnails. He said he wants greater investment in investigative, public interest journalism. Existing not-for-profit news organisations, like the Bureau for Investigative Journalism, could be given charitable status, he has said. Now, I have no interest in not-for-profit organisations. I'm not against them, I just don't care about them. I do though care if something is publicly funded, whether or not there is any accountability to it. This is something of interest. Raising taxes to then publicly fund journalism has an eerie sort of feel to it, like government interference potentially, in what we, the consumer, get. But at the same time, and this is where it gets really muddly and messy. Muddly, is that a word? Let's go with muddy. Because while you want the press to be free, you also want them to be held to a certain set of standards. Who decides on those standards? Is it some kind of independent watchdog, perhaps? Is it a government ruling? And if so, who? Which political party or politics govern that? It's messy. I don't like it. Media trust has been going down for a long time. We saw it absolutely nosedive during Brexit, because scaremongery was the greatest tactic used. Now you still see, even nearly 2 years later, puff pieces done on tweets by Donald Trump. It's pathetic. Some have learnt their lesson and moved on to bigger issues. Those are the ones you don't see. Others continue to act like pouty little bitches. Cough cough. Owen Jones. Cough cough. This public interest media fund could be paid for either through a content sharing and advertising revenue agreement with Google, similar to that agreed in France or Belgium in 2013, or, if it is not possible, he said a Labour government would be prepared to explore a one-off tax to the profits of the market-leading search engine and other platform. If ever there was a way to inevitably guarantee that Google pulled out, that would be it. Because you've not only singled them out, but you have shown your hand. You have said what you will do if you get into power. Google, if they have any political leaning, will want to protect its profits, and therefore it will side with the Conservatives, whether publicly or not, and even if they don't agree with them politically. Money is a very big talker. This is something I'm not a fan of when it comes to negotiations. If you show your hand, or your plans too early, which for you is about 4 years too early, you run the risk of just being laughed at. Now, it's great that you're putting ideas across. I think it's fantastic, because now we have your idea, a potential idea anyway. It doesn't quite stack up though, and this concerns me. This one-off tax on the profits. What is the rate you set for it? I have to know, because while I'm all in favour of companies paying taxes, it is important to know that if you've isolated Google, whether you're being consistent with it, whether you then issue a similar tax levy on companies like Amazon and Facebook, or whether it is just Google, in which case it does come across as discrimination of some kind. Mr. Corbyn has also said he wants a dogged, local media with the money and time to work on stories. He said quality journalism requires decent pay, citing statistics which show 24% of journalists earn less than $20,000 a year. Now, if this can be attributed to why those same journalists, if you could even put their name to the articles that they put out and then their pay, made the worst articles or got the worst result according to what they wrote, you then have to try and work out whether or not what they wrote was intellectually honest or was clickbaity as fuck and just sucked dick. Journalists in the private sector would elect their editors to help make them accountable to their staff as well as corporate bosses. I'm not sure that'll work, because then it sounds like a boys' club, less of a democracy, or you're trying to instill a democracy in something that is privately owned especially. I'm not sure that's how it works. I don't think it will work either. As earlier stated, boys' club, cliques, it's what will happen. New news cooperatives could be created to report on local government, private contractors operating public services, and regulated bodies. Now this one is an interesting one, because I'm not entirely sure where I sit on it. It does sound essentially like a watchdog, which I'm okay with, but it's a new body. How does it work? Because I don't know this, I am very much uncertain or skeptical of what it will do. The best journalism takes on the powerful in the corporate world as well as government and helps create an informed public. It used to, but now it tries to scare the public. Now it peddles lies or fake news. The Labour leader, who has been subject to fierce attacks by sections of the British press and has criticised leading tech firms over tax avoidance and data misuse, claimed journalists are being held back by media tycoons, and in the case of the BBC, by excessive state influence. Well, let's address this. The Labour leader has not helped himself with a number of comments he has made. Yes, they've been taken out of context and quote-mined, but he has not helped himself. He needs to be quick. He needs to respond quickly. He has to be public, and he has to be on this like a bullet. As far as tax avoidance and data misuse go, I totally understand and I'm on his side when it comes to criticising tech firms for avoiding paying tax. Of course, if it is in law that they can do it, of course, do it. But he is right to criticise you for doing it. And of course, then it's down to the government to fix that. And data misuse, yes, we're all aware of Cambridge Analytica. Claiming, though, that journalists are being held back by media tycoons, I think is wrong. I don't think they're being held back. I think they're taking liberties. And in the case of the BBC, the sooner it is defunded and sold off to somebody, and hopefully the one remaining commodity it has, cough, Doctor Who, cough, is bought up by Netflix and saved. Not prejudging Jodie Whittaker's term as Doctor yet, of course. I will, of course, reserve judgment on that. But the last 3 seasons have not been that good. The writing has been woeful. Ideas for the BBC. Mr. Corbyn also suggested a series of proposals for the BBC, including publishing the social class of all creators of BBC content, whether in-house or external. I don't understand the purpose of this, whether it's to show these people are down with the people or whether they are better than the people. I don't get it. Responsibility for deciding the licence fee could be taken away from ministers and handed to an independent body. And I think we shouldn't have to pay for a licence to own a television for stuff we don't use. Yes, in this instance I'm using a news article from the BBC, but I don't need a TV licence for that. Honestly, sell the BBC. It is antiquated and pathetic. It's an embarrassment. There's a drama on it called EastEnders, called a soap. For many, many decades, people have lived in this place called Albert Square, and a lot of people have died, and yet people still move to live there, in this pokey little area of London. Can we stop it now? It's embarrassing. And he said the digital top-up to the licence fee from tech giants could help reduce the cost of the licence fee for poor households. I think that's an interesting idea, but I don't believe it could work. He also suggested BBC staff and licence fee payers could elect some BBC board members, which he said would reduce political influence. That's not true. Political influence is everywhere. It's how some people get jobs. That's not even a joke, it's not a conspiracy here. This is social, it's very much known. National and regional BBC boards could be expanded with quotas for women and minority groups to help decentralise the... Fuck off with your quota crap. You're negating meritocracy in favour of gender and race because... representation. That's a bad idea, Jeremy. A publicly owned sister organisation to the BBC could be created called the British Digital Corporation to provide information and entertainment to rival Netflix and Amazon. Good luck with that. That won't work. It's a good idea to create something to compete with them, but no, it's not going to work. For one thing, you'd need quality writers to come up with some decent shows. But the best we get with the BBC are period dramas that have been rehashed several times over, crappy soaps that need to die, and Doctor Who that is dying a very slow, painful death. For God's sake, her new screwdriver looks like a sex toy. Could be melted down version of the 12th Doctor's screwdriver, but for now it's a sex toy. Grumble. Oh, and 2 things before I finish this. I promised I'd insert this word into the video. Ponce. Done. Second, and I'm ending on this, so I hope everyone has a lovely Tuesday and thank you all for listening.
Airas.
Worth it.
Oh, goddowns.
In your arse.
Imagine my shock